Development will now come to order. We'll take the items in order that they're presented on the agenda. We are commencing this meeting as a minority committee, as we, not because of our Latino status, but because of the number of members. This is a 5-member committee. We have 2 members present. With that, we'll start with item number 1.
Good morning, John White, City Clerk. Item 1, CLA report relative to the city's position on SB 999, the Juvenile Life Without Reform Parole Act, which would eliminate the life without parole sentence for minors under the age of 18, pursuant to resolution. Garcetti Perry.
Good morning.
Morning. Annie Tadino from the CLA.
Can you put the mic a little bit closer to you, the microphone?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is this better?
That's better.
Okay, great. Existing law provides that the penalty for first-degree murder by defendants aged 16 to 18 will be a sentence of life without parole, or at the judge's discretion, a sentence of 25 years to life. SB 999 provides instead that the penalty for first-degree murder by a defendant under the age of 18 shall be a sentence of 25 years to life. The status of the legislation is in April of 2007, the California Public Safety Committee voted 3-2 in favor of the bill, and currently on January 28th, it's going to the California Senate for a vote, and it has to pass by a 2/3 majority in order to pass, and if it doesn't pass, it's going to expire on January 31st, 2008.
Okay. Thank you very much. What this is a resolution for the City of Los Angeles, or the Council of the City of Los Angeles, to decide whether or not we agree with this Senate bill, the state Senate bill here in California. The issue here is whether or not minors should be sentenced to life in prison without parole.
Right.
The current bill basically says that the harshest sentence can be 25 years to life.
Right.
So it's the without parole that is the main issue at hand, correct?
That's correct.
Are you familiar at all with our justice system and our sentencing system in this country when it comes to adults versus juveniles?
Somewhat.
Are you aware, or can you articulate at all your understanding of whether or not we have 2 systems, an adult system and a juvenile system?
Right, so the way I understand it is, and I'm not completely familiar
Sure.
with the system, but the way I understand it is there's the juvenile court system and the adult court system. For this sentencing, the way I understand it is the juveniles are tried as adults in an adult court, and therefore...
They're applying adult sentencing.
Right.
Yeah. But the fundamental difference, as I understand it, in this country, based on how this country was founded, and once we had a system of judicial system in this country, is that we purposefully have a juvenile system and sentencing, and we have an adult system and sentencing. And one of the basic fundamentals in this country, and California has, in my opinion, gone in the wrong direction, and that's why we have the need for SB 999, is California specifically has gone in a direction for the last 40 years or so where they have been blending both the systems and the sentencing for juveniles, ignoring the fundamental responsibility of society to give minors, not adults, to give minors the opportunity to rehabilitate. In other words, to give them the opportunity to get back on track, to give them the opportunity to move in a direction where they can be a better member of society. The fundamental difference is using, for example, the fact that people are not allowed to vote until they attain the age of 18. That is what we consider to be of adult age. Once somebody becomes of adult age, with it comes certain responsibilities, expectations, and assumptions that those individuals have adult capacity, that those individuals have already had the opportunity, at least by the number of years, to attain the ability to understand the difference between what is right and what is wrong. In addition to that, for them to understand the difference between what is consequential or not, or even understanding the consequences. So, in my opinion, SB 999 is necessary in order for us to fundamentally get back to a place where we appreciate and respect and accept our responsibilities as families, as society, to treat our young people, our non-adults, and to educate them, to rehabilitate them if necessary, and to give them the opportunity to become proper adult citizens, law-abiding citizens. What we're talking about here is young people under the age of 18. It's under the age of 18, correct? It's
Yes.
not 18.
It's under the age of 18.
In other words, if they're 16, 17, or on their way to becoming 18 and they commit a crime of first-degree murder, the issue here is, should they be allowed to be sentenced, which is under the current law, to life without parole?
Correct.
Correct? The fundamental issue at hand, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, is not about being soft on crime. It's not about someone committing an egregious crime such as first-degree murder and them not having to be punished or to do their time. 25 to life in the state of California, all too often, is in fact a life sentence. As a matter of fact, the state courts, the state Supreme Court, some years ago, not too long ago, actually reprimanded the governor and their parole system because they, in effect, by default, had become a non-parole board, a non-parole system, where people were being denied parole, it seems systematically, instead of looking at the individual situation. So, if anybody thinks that by giving some 17-year-old 25 to life, which would not be affected by SB 999, that in effect could by default be a life sentence. So with that, do we have any other questions from the committee before we hear some cards from the public?
No, I'll wait till after the
Okay.
comment.
All right, we have, okay, quite a few people to speak on number one. Okay, we have Kim McGill, Mireya Herrera, and Gabby Lopez. There's 3 microphones for you. Oh, okay, we have 4 microphones. Tanisha Mendoza, or Torisha, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Please come forward. Whoever is at your microphone first, please begin to speak and announce your name. Sit down, please. If I called your name, Kim, Mireya, Gabby, and I'm sorry if I can't read it right, Tonisha or Torisha?
Tanisha.
Tanisha, okay. 1, 2, 3, there's 5 of you.
Yeah.
Which one of you is not Kim, Mireya, Gabby, or Tanisha?
Angie.
And
Did you fill out a card?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Well, you can sit down in the back. I'm going to call you in a few seconds. Unless you're giving a presentation in concurrence with somebody else. What's your name, young lady?
Angie.
Angie. And Angie filled out a card? Here we go. Angie de Jesus. Okay, if you want to share a seat, that's fine with me. Okay, who's going to go first?
I guess I could start off.
Please say your name, and if you're here to represent any organization, please include that if you wish.
Good morning, Councilman, Mr. Hewitt. My name's Kim McGill. I'm with the Youth Justice Coalition, and these are all members of the Youth Justice Coalition, as well as students at the Friele High School that we have there. We've been working on this bill for a long time now, for almost since it was first introduced. We believe that it's really, really crucial that California step out on this issue, and LA County especially, because we lead the nation in young people serving this sentence and being tried as adults in our courts. We don't think it's even as strong a bill as California needs. We believe it's a first step toward really bringing justice to young people in communities. I'm sure you've heard the statistics, but the majority of young people serving life without parole in the United States are people that this is their first arrest. The majority of the young people serving this sentence were not the main people involved in the crime, but were there mostly on aiding and abetting charges. In some cases, these are young people that, in many cases, were victimized for years. And one of the fact sheets we gave you, which I'm sure you've heard about this case too, is a young woman from Riverside who was victimized by a pimp for 3 years before getting a murder charge, was raped, brutalized, put on the streets to work from the ages of 12 to 15, and she's serving a life sentence without ever having the possibility of parole. So we believe that much more is needed, and that if LA County could take the lead in really coming out in support of SB 999, it would be an amazing first step toward really returning young people to the juvenile system that they deserve, and taking them out of the adult system. We also have a number of parents whose children are looking at serving possible life sentences that are now being detained at Sylmar Juvenile Hall, and would love to have a conference with not only this committee, but the whole city council about working on this kind of legislation moving forward. And we're also available to answer questions about how this impacts young people in our communities and families.
Okay. Next. Please move the microphone closer to you. State your name for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Gabriela Lopez, and I'm a student at the Youth Justice Coalition.
Take your time, don't worry. We don't punish people for being here. We welcome your presentation and your thoughts.
Well, my thought about the SB 999 is that not every minor should be charged with, how you call it?
Life without parole.
Yeah, because, I mean, everybody, they make mistakes, but they could get like a second chance and prove that they could do way better, and that, I mean.
How old are you?
16.
16. Okay, go ahead.
I have little brothers, and I don't want them to grow up I don't want them to do it with nothing like this. So
you think that, is it of your opinion that the law is not appropriate, or it's not just, it's not equal to, the punishment is not equal to the crime of life without parole for a minor? So are you saying that minors should not be sentenced to life without parole?
yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
This is the first time for many people testifying.
Sure, I understand. I'm trying to make it as comfortable as possible for you. We're not mean today. Maybe we're mean sometimes, but not today. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Maria Herrera. I'm with the Young Justice Coalition too. I don't believe in life without parole. I believe in life without parole. I mean, you guys get me.
Sure. Go ahead.
I don't think that minors should be sentenced to life because they're supposed to have a second chance. You don't know if that person's going to be able to go to Harvard and graduate and be a doctor. You never know because they're never going to come out. They should all have a second chance. I don't want my baby to come out and be, having to know that somehow she does a little mistake, she's going to go through life without parole, not being able to come out never in her life. I want her to know that if she did a mistake, she's going to have to, go to whatever system she has to go through, but she's going to be able to get out someday, I don't think that every minor should be locked up for life just for doing one mistake that maybe it was an accident, they didn't mean it, or, doesn't really matter what was the case. They should all have a second chance because you never know what they're really capable of doing later on in their lives. That's what I think.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next.
My name is Angie Jesus.
Okay.
And my thought about the bill SB 999, I think every youth should have another opportunity to change and become a new person. And instead of locking them up for years, they should try to help them get jobs and help them change. That's my.
So you believe in rehabilitation for minors?
Yeah, I believe in that.
Okay. Thank you. Tanisha, ready when you are.
Okay. Hi, my name is Tanisha. My name is Tanisha Mendoza. What I think about SB 99 is that they shouldn't get life without parole because somebody may have hurt them and they wanted to protect themselves, or they made a mistake, or because they're young and then they don't know until they get older, maybe then they realize. And like she said, they should give them more jobs, more resources, like put them in schools or give them jobs, housing, and what else? I had to write them all the time. Oh, and try to help them. That's it. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Kim, is there anything else you wanted to add, since the young ladies left some time on the clock?
Well, I apologize that we were late, so you probably already heard these statistics, but I think they're worth repeating again. There are more than 2,230 young people serving this sentence nationwide. There's now a bill, again, being led by California and especially being led by LA County. Feinstein's bill's already made it through the Senate. Adam Schiff has a bill that's about to go before the congressional floor, which will take life without parole nationwide to all 50 states. It already exists in 39.
So they want to enhance life without parole?
They want to
across
make it
the
more
country.
widespread, in other
Okay.
words. So what I think we've been really responsible for in LA County is to take really punitive laws and spread them nationwide and now worldwide. And that's not just life without parole, but a number of other things like Proposition 21. And so I think it's really our responsibility to take the lead on setting a new trend for youth justice, which would mean passing SB 999 in California, because a lot of states are watching what's going to happen here. I think you guys' leadership on this issue would be key, because we're the largest county sending young people up for this sentence and other harsh sentences. Everyone in the country tends to look at what LA County does and what LA City does.
Well, it's ironic that U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein from California would supposedly be spearheading a juvenile justice legislation that's supposed to give intervention, prevention programs, basically front-end programmatic money federally to states and local governments, and yet at the same time, she's carrying a bill to enhance sentencing for juveniles. It leads me to believe that either she is being misled, because to me, those are contradictory, or she personally does not understand what juvenile justice is, or doesn't understand the balance and responsibility that we have to juveniles in our society. And those, some people might think those are strong words, but I've always been suspect with this particular U.S. Senator being the person to carry a juvenile justice legislation, and my suspicions have been realized because her juvenile justice legislation affords more opportunities for suppression programs and things of that nature than they do for the front-end tax-saving programs, which are intervention and prevention, or even reentry. So it's interesting that you would point that out. It's my understanding as well that quite a bit of a percentage of these young people who end up with a life sentence without parole are actually being represented by public defenders.
By
So-
far the vast majority, and it's also overwhelmingly a sentence that young people of color get. I think it's 25 times more likely to be sentenced for African American youth than white youth for the same charges, and 5 times more likely for Latino youth than white youth. So it's also racist legislation. Like most of our justice system, it's not something that's served equally to young people based on race and income.
The statistics I have for African Americans is 20 times higher than Caucasian young people, and for Hispanics, 5 times higher than young people. And I think one of the reasons for that, not the only reason, or maybe not even the biggest contributor, is that people in this country don't realize, especially low-income families, people who, for many reasons, want to avoid the justice system, and one of the reasons is because lawyers are expensive, and it's a very, very, very uncomfortable place for anybody to be. Once they get involved in that system, certain culture, certainly the Latino culture, is to trust in the system. Yet at the same time, they do not afford themselves the opportunity of the best representation. And when you get the best representation, what you get first and foremost, certain things are off the table.
I totally agree with you.
What I mean by that is, I think that's one of the contributing factors to Caucasian youth having such a lower rate of life without parole than young people of color. Because if you were to break it down even further, I think I'm correct in assuming that the vast majority of those young people of color are being represented by public defenders, and they're not getting private representation. They're not getting the best law firm in town to try to fight for the life or the reduced sentencing for that particular individual.
Yeah, we've been to court over the last 2 to 3 years with probably over 300 young people and their families, all of whom had public defenders or who had very, very low-paying private attorneys. That if your family can't afford on a case like this a $35,000 to $60,000 legal bill, you might as well not pay for a private attorney because you're not going to get adequate representation. So we're seeing families that are putting together their life savings of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 and still not getting adequate representation even with a private attorney. But I think another thing that really contributes to LA County have an incredible high conviction rate on these kind of charges, as well as other harsh charges for young people, is that half of the public defender services in this county are by panel attorneys, not even county employees. And the most those panel attorneys get paid, even on a very serious Class A felony case, is $287, no matter how many times the case goes to court, no matter how much resources they need for trial. So 50% of the young people that get public defenders are not being served by a county employee. They're being served by a very low-paid private attorney who works, under contract for the county. Because of that, LA County has one of the highest conviction rates in the country also, which contributes a lot to us leading in this area. 90% of the people that go to trial in LA County lose their trial. 96% who appeal their trial at the state level lose their appeal. So race and income is a huge factor, and if we don't have laws in place to protect people against extreme sentencing, there's no way they're going to get justice in court.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. Would you happen to know, or the CLA would know, for those who have been brought to the justice system or given a sentence as a youngster, or for those who've got involved and given a sentence as an adult, is there a difference in the recidivism rate?
Not much. Unfortunately, you'd think that there'd be a lot more rehabilitative services for young people, but in California, the recidivism rate, both for young people coming out of CYA and even our camp system, although the camp numbers are not kept as closely as they should be, and that's that's a whole other conversation. But for CYA and state prison, it's pretty much equal. People say that between 74 and 81% of people that get state prison or CYA time are rearrested within a couple of years of coming home. And I would say also, this is like another huge issue why SB 999 is so important. You mentioned the broken parole system. Majority of those people going back to prison or to YA are going on low-level parole violations. So, another reason why to have a very strong parole board and to support SB 999 so the parole really, regains its authority in the state is so that we can really look at what people are really accomplishing and what are they really doing in communities and be more fair about who really needs to be in prison and who really needs to be home.
Because I imagine that the opponents of this bill are probably arguing that some of these young people committed some very heinous crimes and we don't want them back on the street ever again. But we're saying, or what the advocates are saying is, of the bill, well, some of those people are being rehabilitated, and if they're being rehabilitated, they deserve a chance to be reintroduced to society. So, but the question then remains, is it these people who are committing those heinous crimes at a young age, are they being rehabilitated, and are they going back to prison or continue, if they're let go early, are they going back to society and committing more crimes?
Well, with this bill, remember, they're not even going to face a parole board for 25 years. By the time they get paroled, they're going to be at least 50, most of them, many of them 55, 60. And the recidivism rate for senior citizens is almost zero. One of the things that people are pushing for is that it's ridiculous that LA County also leads the nation in continuing to lock up senior citizens. It's a crazy waste of money. It's a crazy waste of life. So there's very, very little chance that these people, when they're paroled, will come home and commit crimes, and especially not commit violent crimes. majority of violent crimes also are not committed by young people. Young people in LA County, not just recently with all the statistics about homicides being down, but since 2000, LA County already juvenile crime rates were at their lowest level since 1967. So there's a myth that's been promoted that we have an out-of-control violent youth population. It's just not true. So even majority of young people that come home and go back to prison are not going back to prison on violent charges. Majority are going back on low-level parole violations or more minor, especially drug-related charges.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speakers, Elizabeth, thank you very much. Elizabeth Calvin, Brenda Ramirez, Arturo, I think it's Macedo, sorry if I, okay, and Shalan Joseph. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Calvin, and I'm a researcher and advocate with the organization Human Rights Watch. Human Rights Watch investigates violations of human rights around the world and also here in the United States. In California, we are focused on children's rights in the juvenile justice system and in the foster care system. And for the last year and a half, we have been looking at California's use of the sentence life without parole, and I've submitted for your consideration a report that we released 2 days ago, the title of which is When I Die, They'll Send Me Home, and it is a review of California's use of life without parole. There are at least 227 youth who have been sentenced to die in prison in California. They were ages 14 to 17 when they committed their crimes. And in California, life without parole means exactly what it says. There's no chance for parole, no time off for good behavior, no opportunity to prove that you are a different person or that you made a mistake when you were 16 and now you're 30 and you're not going to make those same kinds of mistakes. It is a sentence to die in prison. We have reviewed the records of the Department of Corrections. We have conducted interviews with close to 30 individuals serving this sentence. We've spoken with attorneys, family members, and I also did a survey of more than half of the people serving the sentence. Based on that evidence, we have concluded that this is a sentence that when it's being used for youth in California is not being reserved for the worst crimes or the most, what people might call, unredeemable criminals. Instead, it is being used in a way that is unjust and inequitable.
Please close.
Pardon? Pardon?
Please close.
45% of the cases we found were cases where the young person was not the trigger person. They were instead convicted on felony murder. In 70% of the cases where there's a co-defendant, the young person had an adult co-defendant. And in 56% of those cases, so in more than half of the cases, the adult co-defendant got a lesser sentence than the juvenile did.
What percentage?
If you look at the adult co-defendant cases, so in cases in which somebody had an
Involved more
adult
than one
co-defendant, which is the vast majority of the cases, these kids are operating under the influence and in some cases under the direction of adults, 56% of those cases, the adult got a lesser sentence.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's inconsistent with what this country stands for. To give a child in the presence of an adult, in committing in the presence of an adult when they commit a crime together, that in over half the cases, the adult gets a lesser sentence.
That's right.
I'm sorry, but to me, that's not justice. That's politics. I see prosecutors trying to earn badges or stars or stripes or notches in their belt. Because I'll tell you this, I can guarantee you, if you did research on sentencing of adults for life without parole and sentencing of juveniles with life without parole, you will find that the amount of ink and the amount of news coverage on that case is higher when it comes to the minor than it is for the adult. And that's what I mean by politics. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, this is speculation to some degree, but it is based on the data that we have been reviewing. We believe that there are a couple of reasons that this is happening, and I think you have maybe raised another reason that it might be happening. But we think maybe that in many cases, the same immaturity that got the young person involved in the crime in the first place inhibits their ability to maneuver in the adult criminal system. And so, for example, it inhibits their ability to understand plea deals, for example. And we have with us Mr. Macedo, who's at the end of the table here. His son was convicted on felony murder. And I tell you, his actions are the quintessential actions of an adolescent who makes a bad decision, and 10 minutes later, his life was gone, and he's in prison for life. He stood next to someone who committed a robbery, and in the midst of that robbery, the victim was killed. But what Christian did was very, very little. Christian turned down a sentence of 15 to life, because when he was 16 years old, he couldn't completely comprehend what that meant in terms of time and the effect of his life. And he kept saying, as he told me when I interviewed him, you know, look, at the time I felt like I hadn't done anything. I was involved with a robbery, but I didn't kill somebody. How could I plead guilty to killing somebody? This is something that maybe a 25-year-old might have a different perspective on. In addition, we have 17 and 16-year-olds who are offered these deals in some cases, not in all cases. And I think some of our data may support what you were saying as well, because it's really only in about 35% of the cases that they are offered deals. But they're offered deals, and one guy said to me, you know, I was 17, and I was offered 30 years. I thought to myself, I'd be 47, that's forever. And that is forever for a 17-year-old. The other thing is adults are more likely, I think, to be able to maneuver through the system. And one guy said to me he had 3 adult co-defendants, one of whom was 10 years older than him. And he said, you know, at the time, I wanted to impress these older dudes. I thought they were my friends. And as it turned out, they all blamed it on me. So these, I think the fact that they are juveniles and are young, and our research from 2005 shows that 59%, so almost 60%, are first-time offenders. So on the one hand, these are very serious cases, right? The most serious case you can have. But on the other, these are not kids that have constantly been in trouble. It's a first-time offense.
Elizabeth, have you been in the courtroom in any of these cases?
Pardon?
Have you been in a courtroom for any cases like this?
I haven't, but I've interviewed people.
Okay.
And actually, just to reiterate the issue of things falling apart in the courtroom, I think we have 2 pieces of data that are very important in that regard. One, in 45% of the cases for which we did surveys, people reported that their attorney, so the attorney representing the juvenile, did not argue for a lesser sentence.
Wow.
So the voice of that child in the courtroom did not stand up and argue for a lesser sentence.
Wait a minute. Again, I'm going to make my own assumption. If I've got a lawyer and my family's paying that lawyer $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, and that lawyer reads the writing on the wall, I think just by his fiduciary responsibility, that lawyer will be arguing for a lesser sentence. But what I'm saying is, but when you get a public defender or someone who's getting paid a few $100s, or certainly are going backwards financially in their responsibilities because they're assigned by the court, I don't think you get the same representation.
I can't speak. We didn't look specifically to public defenders or lower paid attorneys versus, and this.
When are you going to do that?
I think that would be I think this is a critical issue to justice. And so I think actually it would be a very good thing for us to be doing an investigation on. What I can say is one very recent case just a few weeks ago, I spoke to the family and spoke also to an advocate who was in the courtroom, and the verdict came back, and the judge said to the attorney, do you want to set this over for sentencing. And the attorney said, no, there's really only one sentence that can be given anyway.
Whoa, which attorney was this? The prosecutor?
No, that was the defense attorney.
Really?
And, as the mother said to me, and this is in the report, the mother said...
Is that person getting disbarred? Do you know if there's any action against that person?
No.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
Because I bet you that family doesn't even understand the responsibilities that lawyers even have by being members of the bar. And there's a fiduciary responsibility that comes with it. I mean, we have a lawyer in the room. There's a fiduciary responsibility that comes with it. And that is to defend and advocate for your client until it's over. And when that judge asked that question, the judge was either saying it directly or read between the lines, guy or gal. You might want to put this over.
Yeah. Well, I think it's not an understatement to say that the same amount of work that goes into a trial should go into a sentencing hearing when you're talking about a 16 or 17-year-old facing the harshest penalty that is available under law.
Well, you gave that example, and we got to move on to other people who are going to testify. In that example you gave, what was how did that defense lawyer get picked? Was it a paid lawyer? Was it?
He was a paid lawyer.
It was a paid lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember if it was what the ethnicity of the defendant was? That's okay.
I don't remember the ethnicity.
Okay, that's fine.
I can tell you that
I'm just wondering
this was not a
if
highly
it has
paid lawyer. I can
bearing
say
on
that.
the statistics that we have
Yeah.
in our notes and that one of the presenters mentioned. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I have to move on to
Okay.
other, and this will go to council, by the way, and people will have another opportunity to testify in council. Yeah.
Can I ask one question of the speaker? When in your research, did you ask judges or others involved in the justice system what the purpose of without the possibility of parole was? What's its purpose?
And what is the response of judges?
Or people handing out the sentences?
Yeah. No, we have not asked judges directly. We have read sentencing transcripts, and we have asked people who have been sentenced, what did the judge say to justify this sentence? And the typical response to that was, this is a horrible crime, and you deserve this. I think when you put these pieces together, and I think the race issue is a huge issue, and if I can just beg your pardon just to say, this report that we released this week has updated race information, and California, we can say with certainty now that California is the worst in the nation as far as racial disparity in the use of this sentence. And if that doesn't make Californians ashamed and feel like this sentence needs to be changed for that reason alone, so there are things happening in the sentencing courtroom that are causing racial disparity to occur as far as the sentencing, and the fact that attorneys are not arguing for a lower sentence, then what the judge has before him or her is just this, the crime, and there's not a lot of discussion of alternatives.
And can I follow up with another question that I asked earlier? Have you seen any data to suggest there's a difference between recidivism rates of young people and people who enter or receive their sentences as an adult?
There are many several large-scale and many other research studies that have been done specifically on the issue of children staying in the juvenile system versus being transferred to the adult system. And children that are transferred to the adult system have a higher rate of recidivism. As far as, I think more on point to the question that you're asking, one thing that I can say is that while there are high recidivism rates for people who go through the adult system, meaning adults and people who were tried as adults even though they were children, for every type of crime, the lowest rate of all is for murder. And that's really what we're talking about with SB 999. So while burglary, there's something like a 40 or 50% rate, assault, there's an equally high rate, robbery, a high rate. People who serve time for murder and are released, not the people that we're talking about, not an option for them, but people who are released have a 20% recidivism rate. And when I speak of recidivism, I'm talking about everything including misdemeanors. So I'm not talking about going out and committing a new murder
So
necessarily.
the flip side of that is 80% of them don't commit an additional crime that puts them back.
Right, not
Before
even a misdemeanor. So in terms of recidivism rates and the crimes that we're talking about, this is a pretty good risk. But then again, SB 99, as you've pointed out, council member, is 25 to life. It's a very lengthy sentence.
And so how would you answer the question that these individuals have committed some crimes that they're a danger to society and we don't want them back out on our streets?
Well, I mean, I think we have to answer the question by looking at what advances in neuroscience have shown us. The fact that these are not necessarily dangerous individuals. There's nothing that, when you look at 60% are first-time offenders, there is no indication that these individuals are individuals who are likely to commit crimes in the future. I think what is a crucial thing for us to remember is that the law that started allowing juveniles to be sentenced to life without parole was enacted in 1990, and that is before the advances in neuroscience told us that adolescents are still developing. Adolescents' brains are still developing, and we know that that has an impact on analysis of risk and consequences, but it also tells us that these are individuals who are still emerging, still making decisions. And so how can we judge who they are at age 16 and whether they should never be let out again? That's a judgment that should happen much later after they've fully developed.
Well, there's an argument that some people make that says, but once they enter prison or the justice system, they become better criminals than once they started. So the environment they're put in, they probably may come out a bit more disposed to commit more crimes. Is that?
If that's true, under SB 999, they would not be released. But one of the more surprising pieces of data that we found in looking at this is that these are individuals who are remarkably connected to the family. And being connected to family is an indication of when somebody is released, it makes it more likely that they're going to be successful when they're released. So more than 70% were living with their families prior to the incident. And when I asked people who are serving this, are you having regular family visits? More than 80% are having regular family visits. Now, we don't have the data for adults, but I think we can extrapolate, and these are individuals whose families are staying connected with them. And I can also tell you that many of the people that I interviewed are people who are making different kinds of decisions when they get into prison. They're making decisions to not be involved with gangs. Many of these young people are meditating. They are involved in groups that speak to young people that are brought into the prison. We have a very tiny honor yard, 600 people out of 171,000 prisoners, and there are that we know of, 3 juvenile life without parole people on that honor yard. So I would venture to guess that this is a different class of people. When young people end up going into prison, they're still connected with their families, and that connection continues. So I think it makes them a better risk for being released.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for apprising us of one of those statistics. Anytime we fall below Texas, I am ashamed, and it sounds like we fell below them because we're the worst. Brenda Ramirez?
Yes, and I'm a little nervous to be in front of you here,
okay.
and I thank you. Good morning. My name is Brenda Ramirez, and I am the mother of 3 children. My husband and I have run a successful business for over 18 years. I do the accounting and the administration part of the business. We are a very, very close family, and we attend church every week. And I'm here to respectfully ask you to support SB 999. My little brother is serving life without parole for a murder that occurred in the year 2000. He had just turned 16 years old 2 months earlier. My brother met a man who was 4 years older than him. He was a bad influence, someone who had already been in trouble with the law. He would not leave my brother alone. My brother made a bad choice to hang out with him, and on the night of the crime, this man pulled out a gun, shot at a car, and killed a person. My brother was convicted for being the lookout for a robbery. He did not know that this man would hurt someone. The court did find that this older man was the shooter, but under California law, my brother was held responsible for this other person's action. He was sentenced to life with no chance for parole. My brother is now 23 years old, and at this point, he will die in prison. Our family realizes that he was involved with the wrong people and he made bad choices. We are very, very sorry for the pain that resulted to others as a result of this. But one piece of this big picture is that my brother had just turned 16 years old. He made a terrible mistake to hang out with a troubled man, and it is really the type of mistakes teenagers make. Things can go badly very quickly for any of our teenagers. You can't imagine the pain our family feels, especially my mother. Not only was my brother sent to prison for life as a child, but he was sent to Pelican Bay State Prison near the Oregon border, where the worst criminals of the state are housed. Getting to the prison is difficult because it takes almost 18 hours to drive up there. But the worst is to see my young brother's face without any hope for the future, his life taken away, and his dreams gone. He has been in prison for 7 years now. Life has been extremely hard for him. He was so scared to be in a place that horrible, and his life is never safe. He always tries not to worry us, and is more concerned about us than himself, and that's just the kind of person that he is. My brother received his GED while awaiting trial, and he spends his time reading, studying, and he enjoys learning math. And he's now currently taking a correspondence college course in astronomy. His educational options in prisons will be non-existent. There's nothing for them in prison if it weren't for our family support. We supply him with the books he needs. My mother also sends him money to buy food, shoes, underclothing, and personal hygiene items. And I ask you, how can a judge decide that a teenager should be locked up forever? My brothers and others should have a chance to prove that they have changed. They should have a chance for parole, and that's what SB 999 does. It just gives them a chance for parole. In Los Angeles is important, and a resolution in support of SB 999 will be important. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Arturo. How do you spell your last name?
Macedo. My problem, I don't speak English, a lot of English.
Puede hablar en español si quiere, no hay problema.
Sí. Lo que pasa,
Pon el micrófono un poquito más cerca.
Sí. Lo que pasa que nosotros también sentimos por la familia que ellos fueron víctimas de lo que pasó, ¿no?
Your family feels for the victim?
Sí, pero hay una cosa también, nosotros somos víctimas también. ¿Por qué? Porque en ese tiempo los muchachos eran menores de edad, y hay una cosa, la inexperiencia de la vida, hay veces que hace que los muchachos se junten con otras personas que no saben ni quién sea, ¿me entiende? Mi hijo, en aquel entonces, él no tenía mucho de haber conocido al muchacho que mató a la otra persona. Tenía como medio año. Yo a esas personas no los conocía, ¿me entiende? Entonces, esas personas, o sea, que cuando pasó eso de que se mató a la persona, la policía me habló a mí y me dijo, ve y recoge, ve a la estación de policía y ve por tu hijo. Y él me lo entregó como 4 días. Entonces, como el muchacho echó mentiras, porque eran 2 hermanos, el que mató y otro hermano, echó mentiras, y por eso vino otra vez al policía y se metió a la casa sin permiso, porque mis hijas eran menores de edad. Y entonces le dijo, si no nos abres, vamos a matar al perro. Porque mi esposa había en ese momento ido a la escuela por mi hijo. Entonces cuando regresó, los policías lo confrontaron y dijeron, mi hijo pues estaba espantado porque una semana antes lo habían amenazado de muerte a él. Entonces él no sabía ni qué hacer, ¿me entiende? Entonces la razón es una cosa, todos nosotros también somos víctimas. ¿Por qué? Porque en realidad la otra persona era responsable de lo que estaba haciendo. Mi hijo, yo sé que el único error es haber ido a ese lugar. Estaba en un mal lugar, ¿me entiende? Pero en realidad, si usted chequeara, revisara su récord en la cárcel, tiene 10 años ahorita en la cárcel, no tiene ningún récord. Si una persona, que usted sabe que cuando está en la cárcel, si es mala persona, luego el récord se sabe quién es esa persona. Él es muy, es muy callado, él es respetuoso. Desgraciadamente, las malas compañías hacen que los jóvenes, que hagan las cosas, no halagan, sino que ellos mismos son también víctimas, ¿me entiende? De lo que está pasando. Si uno supiera que lo que va a pasar, uno no se va a meter allí. Lo único que digo una cosa, nosotros somos víctimas también de las cosas. Yo ahorita tengo 7 años trabajando 2 turnos, día y noche. Nomás duermo 2 o 3 horas de eso que está pasando. ¿Por qué? Porque cuando pasó, yo en aquel entonces estaba enfermo, estuve 5 años ahí en la casa porque tuve un accidente. Pero le voy a decir una cosa, lo que pasó, que yo estaba con él atendiendo de la escuela y todo eso, regresé y lo que me dieron a mí de lo que estaba enfermo, todo se fue para lo de los abogados. Y en realidad nosotros somos víctimas también de la situación. Como dice la señora, nosotros, ellos son menores de edad, y cómo es que te van a juzgar como adultos, ¿me entiende? Esa es mi situación, de que en realidad hay cosas que no van, o sea que yo aprecio mucho este país porque lo quiero mucho. Tengo 30 años casi aquí, desde que estaba como 17 años, y yo desde que he estado joven aquí, trabaje y trabaje. Una cosa, yo a mis hijos, yo respeto a la vida, yo nunca he estado en la cárcel, yo le he dado a mis hijos buenos principios y todo. Lo único que digo una cosa, hay muchachos que en realidad no deben de estar ahí en la cárcel por otras personas, ¿me entiende?
Okay.
Eso es todo lo que quiero decirles, que en realidad también nosotros somos víctimas. Y lo sentimos mucho también por ellos, porque en realidad ellos también perdieron un ser querido. Nosotros estamos de acuerdo de eso, ¿me entiende?
Gracias.
Gracias por eso.
Thank you very much. Gracias. Next, Shalon Joseph.
Yes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you. I came prepared to speak about SB 99, but I am a LA County public defender who is a juvenile defense practitioner, and respectfully disagree with the quality of representation that our juvenile clients get from public defenders.
Okay, let me challenge you with a couple questions.
Yes.
I apologize if you think I'm attacking the integrity of the individual, but I'm referring more to the system
Yes.
in which you need to work in your position. Do you feel that the public defenders are afforded the array of resources or necessary resources and the latitude to conduct their case as would a very well-financed law firm?
No.
Okay. In addition to that,
I'm sorry.
do you feel, time please, do you feel as though the system that you work with on a daily basis, are there inequities that skew away from the defendant in cases like this?
I would say yes, and if I could speak to that. My job primarily for the last 3.5 years is to represent youth who are in the Division of Juvenile Justice. So 80% of my time is spent within the institution, all the institutions across the state. I will say
Are you a trial lawyer?
Yes. I am a trial lawyer. I'm not doing trials right now. I have done felony trials and have gone back to juvenile, which is more motion writing and advocating for the removal of youth from juvenile justice back into alternative placements and focusing on reentry. I will say when you're looking at the system, I think you do need to look at the whole system. The district attorneys disproportionately file felony cases and cases where they're looking for the juveniles to be found unfit against youth of color. The bench is not recognizing juvenile law and juveniles as the law applies to juveniles. I would say disproportionately youth of color whose cases are filed in the juvenile system are found unfit and then transferred to the adult system, where the minimum they can get for the crimes with which they are convicted is life without parole. When you say lawyers are not arguing for lesser sentences, it's not because we don't want to, it's because we cannot. By statute, those crimes, that is the minimum. I will say that there is a new area of law that is emerging. It is tremendously difficult to get the bench to buy into that law. Just last year in California, there was a case, the Timothy J. case, which had to go up on appeal because juvenile lawyers were asking for the judge to consider immaturity as pertinent to competence and whether or not the juvenile could really ascertain what he was doing. That had to go all the way to the appellate court in order for that to be remanded back to the trial court and order the trial court to consider that as a factor for this particular youth.
So today, the courts should be considering that?
They should be. In addition, it was mentioned by, by Elizabeth about the new neuroscience. There has been in the last 2 years a tremendous amount of studies done on the levels of immaturity, on brain studies that say that, in particular for males, their brain is developing up until the age of 21. This affects impulse control, decision making, everything that should be, and could be considered as mitigation for youth that isn't being considered by the court. When you say we do have lack of resources, yes, we do have lack of resources, but I do take it upon myself to represent these youth in the best way possible. We can make these arguments, we can argue to the judge, we can argue to the DAs that this particular case should not be filed as a fitness case. That's not happening, and it is primarily affecting disproportionately youth of color. In addition, there was a study done recently, and forgive me, I didn't bring the name of it with me, that took a look at every single country imposing LWOP on juveniles. And next to it, we are, as a nation, the highest. The second is Israel, who has 7 juveniles with a sentence of life without parole. Overwhelmingly, internationally, these laws are being repealed because juveniles should not be serving life without parole. Councilman Huizar, you were asking about what should we say to people who say that juveniles are committing crime? My answer to that is invest in them. Invest in our youth. I am in those prisons almost every day. They are not getting educated. They are not being taught vocational skills. There's a consent decree against the Division of Juvenile Justice. They are not responding to that consent decree. In the last 6 months, I've had 8 compliance complaints with the California Department of Education, fighting for my kids to just get school. Okay, you have just given up on a whole segment of this population. It's not that we can just say they'll come back and be criminals. Of course they will. If you're not educating them, if you're not providing them with skills to come back and be productive citizens in this community, yes, that's what you'll get. And basically, that's what we've told them as a state. You are not worth even educating, even though we have you in our custody and care for 6, sometimes 8 years. These kids walk out without even a high school diploma, a GED. It is a battle for me to get them school, let alone books. So when we're considering locking them up forever in a system that's not going to provide them with anything, you are really taking away an important part of our state.
And you're talking about state prisons?
I'm talking about Division of Juvenile Justice, our youth prisons, who are not educating our kids.
And they're funded by the state?
And they're funded by the state.
Are they in any way controlled by the city of Los Angeles?
No, but
the reason why I say that is because Jose and I need to walk through this room when we're done. And
no, they are not.
I don't want people to think that
they are not. They are not.
We are denying these young people that opportunity.
No, they are not. And let me just say to that, I mean, I am working with Eduardo and Michael on the gang model. And you are, as a city, we are on the forefront of change, of adopting intervention and prevention. Feinstein's bill, I agree with you. Scott's bill is trying to counteract that. Whether or not that will have any weight, I don't know. But at least as a city, we are starting in the right direction. We are starting in the right direction. If I may, just one more comment about the disproportionate application of these sentences. I totally agree with Elizabeth that when you look at the studies, when you look at the data, the juvenile offenders are getting higher sentences for minor roles. I don't know if you all have seen the documentary called Juvies. I mean, it's like that is not an isolated incident.
It's my opinion that white-collar crimes are not treated in any semblance in any way like the crimes that we're talking about today. For example, if you're a kid, 16 years old, somebody says, let's go to the liquor store. I'm going to buy some junk food. 16-year-old jumps in a car with a couple other kids, and even if there's a 25-year-old driving the car. And in the process of that endeavor, someone sticks a gun out the window and shoots someone. Police do their job. They find the vehicle. They find the suspects. They apprehend all four of them in this example. They have the right, because of the state legislature has passed the laws, to apply equally punitive sentencing to every person in that vehicle. Oddly enough, you can be a well-to-do, wealthy person running a corporation, and you can, in this country and in the state of California, you can involve yourself in decimating the financial lives of thousands of people to the point where some of those individuals take their lives. And unequivocally, they left the message behind them saying, I am decimated so badly that I've taken my life. You can have cases out of one set of incidents emanating out of an individual with what I consider people who are in the same manner, in the same car, so to speak, in the same boardroom, in the same place, who definitely have the mental capacity of understanding that there's something wrong as this is taking place, perhaps for months at a time, if not years at a time. Yet, many of those individuals who I consider to be in the same scenario, they're somewhat in the vehicle when that crime took place, and yet they don't even get brought to trial. Right. They don't even get even to the point where they're even challenged with a sentence of participation. And we're talking about minors who might be in the presence of other minors and or adults who are not the trigger person, who in some cases there might be even be the other individuals testifying that young 16-year-old here didn't know what we were about to do, didn't participate in what we did. When we dropped that person off, that person was distraught. In other words, there was no semblance of evidence that that person was honestly, consciously participating. Yet that person can and does, in some case, get sentenced as harshly, if not more harsh, than the actual person who pulls the trigger. Does that occur?
Yes.
Again, in my opinion, it's about politics.
It is.
It's about politicians who, in my opinion, selfishly utilize their power and authority to encourage and pass laws with the participation of other members of their bodies, in this case the legislature, to pass laws so that they can advance their careers. Yet, in my opinion, it's inconsistent with what this country stands for. And to give up on youth and not rehabilitate them, or not even give them an opportunity to be rehabilitated, with no semblance of evidence that that's the right thing to do, the financially correct thing to do by the taxpayers, etc., yet we do it over and over again. And I thank you for bringing up the fact that there are people that have brought the state of California to court. They have won cases in which they are mandating our systems to address some of these issues of these people who are incarcerated, yet they defy even the courts when they choose to. And apparently there doesn't seem much impetus or will for that to be upheld.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, and I would just add that, I believe the bench is political also. I mean, if you have a case where the political pressure is to show that someone paid the price, that's what's going to happen. And I think that plays a big part in it also. I mean, people are playing into people's fear of the quote-unquote super predator that's out there wreaking havoc on people's lives, and they're not looking at all to the underlying reasons or
the individual case.
Or the individual case, exactly.
Yeah. They're applying generalities
right.
to that particular case. And again, that's not supposed to happen either.
Right.
Right?
Right.
The system of justice, and really what we ought to do is take the word justice out of the system, and I'm not joking.
No, I'm not either.
We need to take the word justice out of the system and just say, this is a system of courts, this is a system of applying penalties, etc. But the word justice really is not applied in our system today, in our justice system, as it's called. It's ironic.
Yes.
I do apologize. I find this very informative, yet at the same time, we do have other items on the agenda, and we're going to have to continue. Gracias. I'm sorry. Did you have a question?
Are we going to move this item, or?
We got more cards.
We got more cards.
Okay. I'm going to apologize to the rest of the speakers who filled out cards. We do have other items on the agenda and of equal importance, of course. So when you come up, I'm going to hold you to your 2 minutes. I do apologize, but we have to continue to move this item on. Maria Sanchez, Maritza. I'm sorry, you're going to have to say your last name.
Maritza Galvez.
How do you say it?
Galvez, Galvez.
Galvez, okay. And Danielle Argueta? And Chino? Do you have a last name, Chino? Is Chino here? Chino, do you have a last name?
Sanchez.
Sanchez.
Nah.
Please speak the truth when you're in this room, if you would, please. This is not a court of law, but it is a matter of respect to not only us here, but to the constituencies of Los Angeles, as this is being taped, and your testimony is part of the record. Okay? Maria?
Well, I'm a little bit nervous.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Well, I'm here for you guys to support the SB 999 because there's something dumb that kids are going in jail since they're little for stealing little things or committing crimes with somebody else. I don't think that's fair because like my best friend, her brother's been in jail since he was 15 years old because he was involved in a murder that somebody else had done. Where were the evidence at? They just gave him 15 years, 16 years in life, in prison for nothing. Where were the evidence at? That's bad. My uncle was in jail for in jail just because he didn't want to go to the army. He was barely 17 years old. And he didn't want, he was already, just because he signed some papers that he was going to go, and at the end he didn't want to go. They wanted to take him to jail. He had to go to the army, he stayed, and he stayed right there since he was 24, 25, and they wouldn't let him get out the army. I don't know why. If not, he would have to go back to jail or something like that. But it's just I don't know.
So it sounds like you're speaking to sometimes the level of maturity of individuals and their actions, and also the consistency of the laws that are punitive or they have harsh sentences for juveniles?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it just throws everything from my mind.
Okay. Thank you. Also, just to understand, for those of you young people, if you enlist in the armed forces in this country, little side note, the moment you sign on that dotted line, and you have a day to report, you are property of the United States of America. So from that point forward, you don't even belong to you. So just a little side note, in the future, for those of you who are going to sign something, be very careful and know what you're doing.
And like my friend said, I don't want to fear, like, when I'm old.
It's okay, I'm sorry. We have to move to the next speaker. Thank you, Maria. Maritza?
Hi, good evening. Good morning. My name is Maritza. I'm here on behalf of the Youth Justice Coalition and Free LA. I'm here to urge you guys to support SB 999. As a young person who lives in LA, I have the personal experience that I've grown up with these people who are serving life, right? These are my peers, the people I go to school with. They're the people I live with, my family. It not only affects LA in general, but it affects the community. These are people that aren't going to get second opportunities. I'm sure that your generation, the older generation, got second opportunities, even third. You learn from your mistakes. These young people serving life in there haven't got that opportunity. They're basically put into jail and the key gets thrown away. They don't get the chance to explain themselves or say, you know what, I deserve a second chance. I've changed and I want to redo my life. We've talked, Councilman Cardenas, you asked about the judges. What have they said? We've talked to 2 judges. I have the names. We talked to Michael Correro, who has been a juvenile court judge in New York for more than 20 years, and Judge Groman has been both juvenile and criminal court judge in LA County. Both said that judges throughout the nation are overwhelmingly against laws that require the mandatory transfer of youth into adult court. This isn't only the community that's speaking up, but judges like these 2 are speaking up too. We urge you guys to support SB 999 today because by supporting SB 999, you won't be supporting just another bill. You'll be supporting the future of all of these young people behind me. You'll be supporting my future and the future of the youth behind bars. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maritza. Danielle?
My name is Danielle Argueta. On behalf of myself, I'm a youth organizer at the Youth Justice Coalition, and I'm also a student at Free LA High School. Right now, I just wanted to say the reasons why I, myself, and the council members should support SB 999 is because youth who are locked up for crimes like killing somebody, robbing somebody, just crimes like that. I mean, look at how we grow up. We grow up in the streets where we don't get the opportunities to go to school, get a good education. We don't have teachers who care enough to push us, work at us. You know, we get put down, we get called names, and we grow up in a society where our country is addicted to money, addicted to incarceration, and we turn on the news and we see that our country is killing people and killing people, young people as well, children. And yet you wonder why we kill people, you wonder why we're addicted to drugs, you wonder why we're doing all this. It's because the system feeds it to us. It's easy money, it's easy to get. If they put as much money into education than they do in war, we wouldn't have this problem. We wouldn't, students will have the mind to know, well, if I'm hanging out with this person and he's 24 and he's doing this, and he doesn't have a job, he doesn't have a steady career, he doesn't have nothing, and he's older, well, shouldn't it make you think, well, if I had this in my neighborhood, I wouldn't want to kill somebody, I don't want to rob somebody, but that's what they feed us, that's what they want us to do. They want us to be in jail so we don't have, so they can get rid of us by the time we get older. I mean, I have a lot of family members who are in jail. I have two people that are in my family that are serving life without parole for being can I finish my statement?
Yeah, please finish.
For being a part of a crime that they didn't commit. Okay. At this point, one of them is only up for parole, and they're not giving him the chance of it. Okay. But I mean, as a youth,
I have to thank you and move on to the next speaker. Thank you, Danielle.
All right.
Okay, Chino, and your last name is Sanchez?
Yeah, Chino. Good afternoon. How we doing? Okay, one of the reasons why I'm want you guys, I'm here is just for you folks to understand that the support for SB 999 is really important, not only for us, but for everybody in the communities and our societies, in our city, in our state. One of the reasons why is, the main reason is because without them having the opportunity of life without parole, you give them no other option but to join the life of crime. Okay, you see, like as a person, as a kid, you know, you're doing life, and you have no options but to fall into, you know, whatever program there is in the facilities or the correctional facilities, and which eventually grow up to be, you know, the people running the prisons and stuff like that, you know, because there's a whole different production in the facilities and stuff like that. It's not. Some people don't understand, but yeah, there's a lot of politics in there, you know, which gets passed on to the streets, and then with more influence, and then just, you know, you put like the kids in a cycle of crime, which leads them to be everything, a hitman, a killer, like a drug trafficker. You have cartels because it's a setup. Pretty much all you're doing is recruiting, like pretty much by not giving them the opportunity to learn and stuff like that, and giving them, you pretty much give them no option but to run with the program that they're set up with. So it's so you go from life without parole, and then you go to the pen where you get recruited, and then you become, you know, you start calling shots, and it gets passed on to the streets. And the streets have to recruit people to run their show, pretty much their production, and then. And then they go for the kid. They target the kids that don't really know much because they lack education. Those kids eventually they get recruited into, you know, drug cartels and so on, and then they end up with life without parole, and then it goes on and on. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Thank you, Chino. Thank you very much. Next, we have, I need a last name, Froggy. What's your last name?
I don't got a last name today, if you guys don't mind.
I'm sorry, your last name is what?
I don't have a last name today, if you guys don't mind. I think I represent like all the last names that are locked up, and, you know.
Froggy, excuse me, you're before my committee, and unless the city attorney of Los Angeles tells me that I have to allow you to testify without giving us your name, I'm not going to allow you to testify. Now, if for some reason you don't want to give your last name to protect yourself or what have you, I respect that. But I'm not going to let you make a presentation to this committee without giving your last name.
You could put my last name, Justice, then.
That's your legal last name?
Yeah.
And that's the name you go by?
Yes.
How do you spell that?
Justice is Justice.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Excuse me, Froggy, I want to say something before you begin. Please understand, you're before a committee of the City of Los Angeles. And the fact of the matter is, if you consider us to be adverse to what you stand for, please understand, I ask you that you talk to some of the people that know both Mr. Huizar and myself, who have spent time with us, who know what we stand for, and that you talk to them about who they see us to be. And the next time you come before us, hopefully you'll have a different perspective. Please proceed.
All right. So my 2 minutes start right now, right?
Yep.
All right.
Please start the 2 minutes.
I'm here before the committee, strongly urging the support SB 999. Not the fact that it's gonna really change things drastically, especially inside the streets and the communities, but youth, even youth right now that are, you know, facing life, or youth before that were facing life, that were youth that are now adults, you know, really, it's all about, you know, another chance, especially, you know, like the situation you gave, the scenario, you know. I feel like, yeah, we are living under these rules and playing this game. It is a lot of politics, but at the same time, we gotta try to help each other out as much as we can, and especially with this bill, that's like helping out a major part of our community, especially with the youth being locked up more and more. Because if you really look at it, the same things have been happening since before, just now that the rules are more aggressive towards the youth, which really makes it harder for kids to be kids when you're locking them up just to, for the same things that have been happening before. So that right there is, and once you take them away and lock them up for life, you're really giving up hope and just throwing them away, saying forget about you guys. And really, I really ask you guys, what kind of vision are you guys painting for the future, especially for the other family members that are still in the community, or even for the youth that are locked up, that are coming out, like what kind of picture are you painting for them, for the community? Like they're still gonna come out, and a lot of times we feel like it's not fair for them. When they come out, they don't come out prepared, or they're coming out worse. So we feel like this is just a small step. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, that concludes the public comment cards filled out for item number 1. Is there anybody else here to make public comment on item number 1? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 1 is now closed. With that, we have a motion to approve the CLA report.
The CLA report recommends approving, supporting.
Supporting as the resolution.
Yeah, and I'd just like to, I asked a number of questions earlier just to lay out the types of issues that this Senate bill has brought before the City Council. And for me, from a policymaking perspective, in supporting this type of legislation, it makes sense. There's no indication in my mind that this would jeopardize public safety. So I think this is good policy. It's not only going to help those individuals who have happened to gotten caught up in this situation, but I think it's going to help all of us as a society. At a more personal level, for someone who grew up in the streets of East LA and someone who grew up in an environment where, yes, I could have been caught up in the criminal justice system, we should give these kids a second chance. And that we truly believe that we are there to rehabilitate, although it's failing, we've got to focus more than on rehabilitating and ensure and put more focus on our criminal justice system, that we're putting a better effort to make sure that these kids don't come out more hardened, upset with society. We got to do more of that. Once they're in there, we do what we can to give them that education and that support. Young people could stray many different ways, and we got to do what we can to ensure that those that happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time are given that second chance, if in fact they show that they have been rehabilitated. But for those of us, or those people who do commit some of those heinous crimes, there are real consequences, and there's no excuse for that. We're not saying we're creating excuses for people. All we're saying is that this is a better way to go about in ensuring that we're committed to rehabilitating people who are in our criminal justice system. It's a very serious issue, and I want to thank those people who are bringing it to our attention. City Council often doesn't, or it's not within our jurisdiction to vote on these types of matters. What we are doing today is putting our weight behind this bill to hopefully help influence the decision makers up in Sacramento. But this is a very serious matter, and I want to thank those of you who did come today. As many of you know, I did not receive the full support of another committee in the City Council. The matter's up on Friday, so for those of you who believe strongly on this, I would suggest that you attend the City Council meeting on Friday as well. And
at 10 a.m., correct?
10 a.m.
Here in this
and
building?
to give the type, and to again testify and give your testimony as to what you believe in. So thank you very much.
On the floor next week. I'm sorry, I've just been informed that it will be continued for a week, so very likely it will be on the City Council agenda, not this Friday, but the following week, possibly Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday of the following week. So you can monitor that. We do have public notice requirements that we follow in this city, such as the Brown Act. So please monitor that so you can know when it comes to the floor in case you want to add your testimony to the full council of the City of Los Angeles. Anything else, Mr. Wisa? Okay. With that, we have a motion to approve. This item moves forward with a 2-0 vote, which is a minority vote of this committee, so it'll be a recommendation of the chair to the floor of the City Council that we approve the resolution in support of SB 999. Okay? Thank you. We now move to item number 2.
Item 2, City Attorney and CAO reports relative to a grant award in the amount of $139,503 from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services for the Project Safe Neighborhoods Program for the period October 1st, 2007 through September 30, 2008.
Okay. Now, this is a grant. Do you understand the responsibilities that come with this grant in order to fulfill those responsibilities? As a department, do you understand the responsibilities of receiving this grant?
Yes, sir.
And exercising it?
Yes, Captain.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Weisader? Neither do I. Is anybody here to speak on item number 2? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 2 has been open and it is now closed. With that, we concur with the recommendations of the Public Safety Committee to approve the CAO and City Attorney reports. Have anything else to add? It's a good time for you to say thank you, and we'll move on. Okay. This is approved on a 2-0 vote, so it'll be a recommendation of the chair of this committee, and it goes to the floor of the council next.
It is yet to go to personnel and budget.
It'll go to budget. Okay.
Personnel first and then budget.
Okay. So it'll leave this committee with a 2-0 vote, which will be documented as a recommendation of the chair to approve. We now move to item number 3.
Item 3, CAO and Board of Police Commissioners reports relative to a grant award in the amount of $118,545 from the State of California Office of Emergency Services for the Police Department's Anti-Gang Initiative Program for the period October 1st, 2007 through September 30, 2008.
Okay. We received information and details of this grant. I just want to ask you before this committee, if you understand the responsibilities of this grant in order to service this grant and comply with the requirements. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Weisader? I don't have any questions. Is anybody here to speak on item number 3? Seeing and hearing none, public comment is open on item number 3. It is now closed. With that, we'll concur with the recommendations of the Public Safety Committee to approve the CAO report. So it'll go forth with a 2-0 vote, which will be documented as a minority report of this committee. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We now move to item number 4. Apologize, item number 4 is probably not going to be that quick, but please come forward.
Item 4, Police Department to present verbal report relative to its partnership with gang intervention agencies in the South Bureau.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Charlie Beck. I'm the Chief of South Bureau. With me is Pat Gannon. He is the commander in charge of our criminal gang homicide group. I also have in the audience a number of members of our collaborative of gang intervention workers and who we meet with regularly, who I believe want to speak on this topic. I'll be general,
sure,
and quick, and then maybe we can have a discussion. I think that's probably what this body wants.
Thank you.
Pat and I are responsible for reducing gang violence in South Los Angeles. Both of us have been involved in these efforts for over 30 years, and during that 30 years, we've had a wide variety of experience, and I have gone around the country, and Pat has also, and looked at other models for gang reduction strategies. We have both come to the conclusion that gang intervention works, that appropriate gang intervention partnered with the community, partnered with law enforcement, can have a long-lasting impact on gang violence in the community. So we have...
On that note, I need to ask you your opinion about this. Do you think the City of Los Angeles, when we fund intervention programs, that the city, the policymakers, and the implementers, that we have a responsibility of making sure that we correspond with these organizations, communicate with them, support them, and make sure that they evolve continuously into better applicants when it comes to applying these methods in order to assist when it comes to public safety with the constituencies that they work with.
I absolutely believe that.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of what we'll talk about today is our efforts to make that happen.
Thank you.
You know, intervention has tremendous potential. And in Los Angeles, that potential, I think, is largely untapped. There are a limited amount of gang intervention folks on the city's payroll. They, up until very recently, have been very loosely structured, somewhat unorganized citywide. There have been there need to be standards in training and in certification. So we've worked towards that, and there's a number of people here that can speak on the work that's been done to that. But what I'd like to talk about is the things that we've done on our side of the house, because I think that is most appropriate for my presentation. You know, it's not about just improving the performance of gang intervention, as you talked about. It's also about improving the ability of the city and the community to work with intervention and to have, because we do have the same goals. I mean, that is undeniable. You know, I have my goals in reducing gang violence is exactly the same as these folks that sit behind me. But we have a long history of not always working together. You know, there's a dynamic, particularly at the street level, where young police officers may hold gang intervention workers at arm's length because of their general experience with folks that they perceive as gang members. And this is natural at their stage of development. But Commander Gannon and I need to exercise our authority and our experience to change that, and we've taken steps to change that. We engage our folks in training with intervention. We make sure that our captains and watch commanders contact intervention whenever we have gang violence that they can intercede in. We do everything in word and deed to make sure that the people that work for us understand the value of intervention. And that's extremely important, because it's the partnership that works. It's, you know, law enforcement can have an impact on gang violence. Intervention can have an impact on gang violence. Community standards can have an impact. But it's the coalition of the three that will change the dynamic that this city suffers from. We have assigned 2 supervisors who work full time with intervention. You know, this comes out of our budgeted table of organization. Really important. You know, it is important that intervention have an avenue of contact within the police department that is both formal and readily available. You know, we have to work as a team. We have to be able to have similar goals, working on the same issues. You know, this is not a matter of making gang intervention a subset of the police department, because that cannot happen.
No, you're right.
They cannot be effective. We cannot be the ones that control their money, and I don't want to. That's not, because that would hurt their ability to do their job, and I need them to be able to do their job.
Now, for the record, because I think you know the answer to this question, I know the answer to this question, many of the people who are here know the answer to this question, but again, we're speaking on the record, and anybody can listen to this at any given time should they request the records. But let me point out to the public, you mentioned several times, and I agree, that the police department, street level police officers, brass, their objective is to be effective in reducing crime, making the streets safer.
Yes.
I think that objective and goal is the same when it comes to intervention workers, intervention organizations, and those of us who fund intervention in the city of Los Angeles. Yet, at the same time, as you described, the police need to be able to work with interventionists, but when you work together and the activity that ensues in that cooperation, the activity, the moment-to-moment activity of the officers working on either a case or in a community, and that of interventionists, that's where the actual activity is very different, correct?
Absolutely.
For example, if a police officer is working on a case and they run into somebody who somehow is involved in that case, perhaps in a negative fashion, that police officer's responsibilities and interaction with that individual is completely different than somebody who's an interventionist, correct?
Absolutely.
Yet at the same time, you believe that they complement each other?
Sure, and you know, I'll put it really, I'm a very plain-spoken guy, and I'll put it really simply, and I tell this to the intervention workers, I tell it to my police officers. Typically, our job is to solve the last murder. Their job is to stop the next one. And, you know, and that, it really puts it in a nutshell. Now there are ways that the police prevent crime and homicide.
Sure. Thank you for pointing that out, because just because we have intervention, some of us recognize the role of interventionists and what it plays, like, as you mentioned, to prevent the next murder or murders or certain kinds of activities that violate the law. It doesn't mean that the police department is not involved in prevention either when it comes to the results of their activities.
And it's the teamwork that can cause lasting results. You know, when tensions rise between gang sets or in a community, in our case, often in housing developments, and we get a call from intervention, many times this is off our radar. We don't know that there's tension because, you know, no crime has been reported and there's been no formal contact to the department. But then we can deploy some of our preventative resources in conjunction. Not when I say conjunction, I mean at the same time as, not holding hands with intervention.
Yeah, they're not in the car with you.
They're not in the car. That's not the point.
Different activities, different sets of norms.
But focused on this, as you pointed out so aptly, focused on the same problem. And that's the beauty of it. Is that you know, we meet monthly. I personally meet monthly with all these folks back here. They meet much more regularly with Pat and with other folks, but so we can work on the same problems, because our issues are the same. You know, we both have the same goal, and if we both work towards that goal, I think that the city can actually make some progress towards, you know, what I think is the most significant problem that we face. You know, and there, I would really like you to be able to hear from some of these folks, particularly I think Howard Euler and Bill Martinez, who I know have spoke to this body before, have got some representatives that they'd like to have present towards this group. I'll just end my presentation with saying that the results are impossible to argue with. In our area that is the most effective, that we have the most effective use of gang intervention, which I would say is Watts right now, 50% reduction in homicides last year, largely based on the coalition that's been built between intervention, the community, and law enforcement. And, you know, that is truly remarkable. You know, it far exceeds any reduction anywhere else in the city or the county, and really
probably anywhere else in the state. I have looked at this on a state level myself.
Yeah. So I think that, you know, 1 year doesn't prove anything concretely, but, you know, it's not 1 year, 30 years. This I see this work. You know, this is what I do for a living. This is the most important thing that I have the ability to affect, and I see it work, and I see the partnerships growing. It's not where it needs to be, you know, but it's getting there, and you know, I think this is a very positive message that this body needs to hear.
Not only is a message, I think that the policy-making body of this city has embraced the responsibility of improving on the quality of life of Angelenos, specifically on the issue of how we are going to roll forward with our intervention programs, prevention programs, and reentry and suppression, and how we're going to allow them to flourish in the sense of addressing issues, complementing each other, and improving as we go along, because this is a young concept. When you look at the age of this country, when you look at the age of this city, when you look at the normal way in which we have become accustomed in this country of addressing crime. Unfortunately, most people think that all we need is more police officers. Of course, we would love to have more police officers. Yes, I do agree that we need more, but it's not a singular monolithic way in which you address the issue of crime. It is a community issue, it is a collaborative issue, and it's a matter of reaching out to the community in various ways. And one of the beauties of intervention, prevention, specifically, is that, as you pointed out, they address an issue of preventing occurrences. Unfortunately, many times your job is heightened, and your activity to solve a crime is as a result of someone getting hurt, someone being egreged, a crime having had committed, and there are victims. Yet at the same time, when you look at prevention and intervention, they complement our entire system by making sure that when they do their job well and complement what you are doing, you have less crime, you have less victims,
Yes.
you have less cost to society, and the list goes on and on. I'd like to ask you, have you had an opportunity to read the definition that was provided, as we call it, the community-based gang intervention model?
Yes.
I mean, we could go on and on about this, but I just want to ask you a basic question. Both of you seem to have experience of looking into or investigating or finding out more about maybe we don't need to reinvent the wheel, and seeing what other communities are doing either around the state or the country when it comes to policing, intervention, and prevention. Have you seen a model articulated as detailed or as holistically, and I'm not saying it's perfect, as holistically as that document to date anywhere else?
You know, I don't think I have. I've looked at the model. Chicago's model is very good.
Yes.
Dr. Slucken he approaches it from a little different angle than I think that Los Angeles needs to, but still a very good model. Newark, I went and looked at the efforts that Dr. Kellings shepherded over in Newark. They're also very good. But I think that I think LA has the potential to make something unique to itself. We are the homeland for the vast majority of gangs in this country, and because of that, I think we have an added responsibility in this matter, and I think that the definition, the body of work that was put together there is comprehensive. I think when you look at that, you look at some of the solutions put forth by the Advancement Project. I think we have a template. What we need to do is push forward, add some resources, develop some guidelines. I was really pleased last week to hear the talk of adding intervention workers. We need to seek outside funding. We need to all these things. So.
Thank you for reminding me of all of the things that we need to do up here.
I don't think we're short on ideas.
I almost was at home listening to my wife. It's very. You pointed out much of what we've been culminating to do, and we expect that much of what you just described is going to culminate in the next 60 days of solidifying both policy, directives, and understandings and expectations of everyone involved. Any other? Okay. I want to remind you, we do not have any public comment cards on item number 4. So if you want to make comment on this item, please, the public comment cards are in the back there. You fill them out, and you give them to this gentleman to my left at the end of the desk here, and we will afford you the opportunity to address this committee. Yes, great. Continue. Yes.
If I can make a couple of observations that we've had. I was the captain at...
We're not filming this, so we need your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Pat Gannon, Commander Pat Gannon. Mm-hmm. And I was the captain at Harbor Station for about 3 years, and I was the captain at 77th Street Station for almost 2 years.
Where are you now?
I'm now a commander at Criminal Gang Homicide Group within Operations South Bureau. So my responsibility right now is we consolidated homicide resources in 3 stations, 77th, Southeast, and Southwest divisions. And I'm responsible for overseeing that, and also for overseeing all gang issues within Operations South Bureau. But as part of my responsibilities, when I got to 77th, I want to talk a little bit about how gang intervention has helped us, I mean, on the ground and specifically. And we had a shooting at a continuation school that occurred in late October. And as a part of that, we ended up with 20 shootings that day. In a 10 square mile area, we had 20 reported shootings throughout the day that occurred after this, in retaliation to this, rumor control. Some were not involved, but it just an incredible scene. I was standing at Manchester and Vermont, and as I was standing there in a corner, my boss called me. It was Chief Pasinger at the time, and Chief Pasinger says, "What are you going to do?" And I knew from instinctively that if I put police officers in my area that I could stop the problem, but I didn't know that I could sustain that. So by that evening, I had 200 police officers assigned to a 10 square mile area in 77th Street area. But after that, I had to come up with something else. I had to some way I had to reach out. I reached out to the group of people that behind you, and that I had no relationship with at the time. I did not know many of them, but all I did was ask for help, and the individuals behind me, they rallied. We met over a period of...
Was there and I don't mean a specific religious faith, but did you find yourself having to rely on faith as much as, your experience, your gut, when you just mentioned that you reached out to a group of individuals and organizations that you really didn't have much of a relationship with?
I had to try something. It was one of those things where it was just out of control. I knew it would continue to be out of control, and I had to try something. The first meeting that I had with these individuals, many of these individuals occurred in the basement of a church. I showed up in a polo shirt and jeans because there was reluctance to meet with a uniformed police officer. That has developed over a period of time into a true relationship of trust and working together.
So now do you meet with them with your uniform?
Absolutely, and we shake hands in public meetings, and we respect each other, as I think is the thing. But in addition to that, we've developed. He's messing with me all the time, Councilman. But we work together. Each one of our watch commanders in Operation South Bureau is responsible that any time there's a significant gang incident, generally a shooting incident with a hit, that the local gang intervention group that handles that particular area, that gang, is notified. That watch commander has to make that notification and log it in his log, and it's subsequently forwarded to myself and to Chief Beck. In addition to that, we've worked out a protocol, a gang protocol that will actually, once those notifications have been made, we will send a form back out to the Unity Collaborative, who we work with, documenting that particular incident, plus the gang intervention agency that we notified, and to provide them with the information that we know. We don't have any secrets on this stuff. I want them to know what the information that we have as to the gangs involved and those types of things that they can do. They've been very effective. In one instance, we had, over a period of 2 weeks, we had 8 murders involving Inglewood family and Roland 60s. And this was the first attempt at working with the group where I actually brought a problem to them, and I asked them for some help. Shortly after I asked for the help, they went to work. The shooting stopped. The killing stopped. Was it a response to the massive amount of police officers that I put onto the problem, or was it a response to intervention? I like to think it was both, and they've played an important role, and I could give you a number of examples with that. So along with Chief Beck, I strongly support hardcore gang street intervention because it works and it does save lives. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for testifying and reminding us of that partnership and how critical it is and how much it's appreciated. What's the are there any how do I put it? When it comes to the police department working with these intervention programs, at least by your experiences, gentlemen, are there any things that need to be overcome? Is there an attrition rate at which more and more officers get to understand that this is a complementary relationship rather than, oh, that's those guys, they're not us, we have our job, we got to do our job, and I don't care what they do. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, and that's That's
Because I know in
that's
the
a culture.
and I know in the Valley, for a while, the main intervention organization in the Valley was having a big problem with, outside of a few brass, who had the confidence that you've expressed today. A lot of the street officers wouldn't have anything to do with it. I mean, it's changed dramatically in the
has.
Valley since then, but I do get feedback from both entities, from some of the brass and also from the main intervention program in the Valley, that some of the officers are still resistant to wanting to open their minds to whether or not this could be a complementary relationship where the mutual goal can be achieved better with each other's involvement.
We're not there, we're not where we need to be yet, but we're moving on that road. As Pat told you, the watch commanders now call. When we started, we had to have the captains call because, obviously the captains report directly to us, so that's, we can make sure that they do exactly what we want. But we push it down. We're having trainings, the sessions that we do with police officers now, we take our youngest police officers that are able to work independently, the ones that they're just getting off probation, and we bring them in to a training program with gang intervention. Those are the officers that are the most receptive, because they haven't had long years of experience that have formed their opinions into blocks that can't be changed so easily. So we bring those folks in, and then, police work is very much like almost anything. If people see that something works, then it becomes adopted. I can point at dozens and dozens of things within our organization, within society that are initially ill-received.
Well, I think it's human nature for human beings in general to resist change.
Well, and we are by nature conservative. I mean, we're police officers. We're conservative folks. So, but this has been undeniably successful, and it is getting recognition from all levels, and that is what we just need to continue to push this thing forward, continue to put it out there, continue to publicize its success, and then it will take hold within the organization. Many things, from ComStat to the way that we're organized now to our chief of police, take some time to take hold, but it will. If there's anything I know about it, it's the culture of this organization.
The other part is that the two supervisors that we have assigned full-time are both well-respected operations people that have a lot of credibility with the officers themselves, and that's why we picked them for that assignment. So when you hear it from us, it's one thing. When you hear it from a street-level supervisor who has street credibility and with the officers themselves, it makes a difference too. But like the chief says, we do have a lot of work with that. But we're not going to stop, and we're going to continue going.
Do you feel you're making progress on that scenario?
Absolutely. This has been a big, we do our, obviously all the command staff meets and talks about what works, what doesn't work, what they want to try, and this is spreading throughout the city, West Bureau, Central Bureau, as you mentioned, the Valley's been doing it for quite a while. Everybody's going to become involved in this model, not because they love the idea, because it works. That's why we adopt things, and pretty soon this will just be the way we do things. And I've seen many changes within this department. Pat and I are both multi-generational LAPD folks. We know how this place works. We just need to keep pushing forward as we're doing, and this will work.
Okay.
We're even getting the sheriffs to show some interest, and if you think we're hard to convince.
I know what you mean. I want you two gentlemen to remain here at the desk, and I'm going to call people up two at a time, so there is room on both sides for the presenters. Howard Euler, Gerald Cabot. Come on up. To either side of the officers, there's microphones, one for each of you. Go ahead. As you sit, please state your name, and you can go ahead and start your presentation.
Good afternoon.
Can you bring the microphone a little closer to you?
My name is Gerald Cabot. I specialize in gang intervention, in hardcore gang intervention. And to touch on some of the conversation that just went on, we, from both sides, law enforcement and gang intervention, the numerous of organizations that's in the city, were reluctant with the response with each other. And over the period of time that Commander Gannon spoke of and Chief Beck, there were some things, and we met again, and we met again, and we found other places to meet, and we met some more. Through this, we kind of felt that each side's out about what was going on. We have two very separate jobs that's done in the neighborhoods, and you said it real well, that a lot of times they are there as law enforcement because there was a crime committed. We are there most of the time because of some things we know or come upon to prevent death. With that, we started receiving phone calls from the different precincts through Chief Beck, Commander Gannon, Sergeant Woodle over the gang force they have right now, Sergeant Scott, Lloyd Scott, Captain Green of 77 is a major player, and we have some more. Southwest, and we have a few more. And we started taking some calls asking for some assistance. Assistance being, there's some things going on. Is there any way we can stop some more killing? We get a call, and personally I get a lot of calls. I get calls in the office, and I get calls on my private cell phone. We as interventionists take the call 24/7 because we cannot stop after 5 o'clock or at 2 o'clock and tell them we sleep when somebody just got shot or killed. This is an issue that most of us are dedicated just to get up or make the call to where it's pertinent to a person or organization that we need some assistance, something's going on, and most of the time everybody gladly put their boots on, get up, wash their face, and gone. I myself call somebody, see if somebody can meet me, call somebody in that area. Look, we got something going on in your neighborhood. We need to come in, we need to talk, we need to find out what we can do to at least stop the killing until you can work this out. And most of these calls come from law enforcement. We have a lot of calls that come from community at large because of the operations that different organizations do and connected with different communities. We have people in here now from all over this city and the valley. And with that, because some of us were so connected prior to this, that people believe in what we do now, and everybody in the street don't want a lot of problems, don't want a lot of murder. They call us, and we dig in, and we do everything we can. Sometimes we pull up on situations where it's real bad. People are standing over somebody dead and with not a lot of good conversation going. We pull up on issues where people are fixing to go take off and do some real bad things. But by the grace of God and maybe a phone call, most of the time we've been able to prevent the back and forth killing. The shootings that Commander talked about on the Florence corridor right there, well, we got a lot of this from help from God. We go in with what we do without a gun and a badge, but I'm a true God-fearing person, and we pray before we get out, and we pray when it's over, and smile at the end of it. And with the blessings, that was I believe, a 2-week to 3-week period, and the body count went up to 12. 8 of them on 3 different streets: Florence, 11th Avenue, 10th Avenue. With connecting the dots with some of people from way on the west side to people in Inglewood that would help out. For people over here, Skip, it was a major player. Skip from Unity 1. Unity 2 definitely called Taco. Taco's from this place. Hey, man, who you got here? And we huddle. And with everybody, Unity 3 was involved at the time. But it was everybody getting together, concentrating on a problem that we all wanted the same outcome. Whatever the problem was, we don't care about who's right or who's wrong in the problem. We want to see what we can get to the table to at least stop the shooting until we can get it to the table and direct the traffic and help you work the issues out. You know, the issues are something that come up later. Issues can't always be worked out overnight, but we try to get the killing stopped. The back and forth is what builds up the body count. Right. You know, and that's our job, because our job is also public safety. And like I said, we don't go in with a badge and a gun. We go in with the other stuff. We go in with the faith of the community. We go in with the faith of knowing I have to know that the person I call is dedicated as I am.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Okay. We got to go on to the next speaker.
Okay.
And Howard, I'm not going to give you that much latitude. I've heard from you before. I think this is the first time we hear from you.
I have to make an appeal for equal treatment here.
But
no, I will try to confine my commentary to about a minute and a half.
Okay.
Bill Martinez and I wrote a proposal some 4.5 years ago to the Community Development Department that led to the funding of the Unity Gang Collaborative. And the vision we brought, now when I say the vision we brought, it's all those agencies, because we met...
You just happen to be the messenger.
Not even that, actually, but we met as a group.
Okay.
And we made an agreement to collaborate, and then go forward with a proposal to the Community Development Department. The agency I was directing at that time, we were asked to be the lead, and we agreed. But the vision that came out of those meetings was the idea of getting all of the different neighborhoods, all the different gangs, locally, regionally, and multi-regionally in this Greater South Bureau, into a peace agreement. And what we came to understand was we had enough money. It took us about 1.5 years to get to that point, but we had enough money to get to about maybe 25-30% of those gangs. And so we never really understood the scale. I don't think CDD did, and this isn't a criticism. It's just what's real. It's Connie's study that helped us get to that point where we understood the scale. The players who come together on this have really been amazing to watch. And I'm talking about Bo Taylor and his Unity 1. I'm talking about Mustafa Fletcher, who's very quietly sitting there, Gerald Cavett, who the two of them are right-hand arms, our group out in the harbor at Toberman Settlement House. They have brought over, collectively, well over 100 neighborhoods to the peace table. And there's another 150 we got to get to. That's the scale of the problem. This coming together with PD, where they see our importance and are networking with us to help identify those neighborhoods and not get in the way of the workers. We don't get in their way, they don't get in our way. We coordinate. Has been a real blessing, because it's enabled us to really bring peace to a lot of neighborhoods. And all these plummeting numbers that you see on homicides in the South Bureau, a major part of that has to be from the gang intervention work. And I would hope that Bo and Mustafa and Kenny would come up and speak, because They are so insightful, they will give you insight that I cannot give you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Howard. Mustafa?
I forgot to mention
Fletcher.
Bill Taylor from Dennis Tucson.
Yes. And I understand that many names weren't mentioned, but there's many more individuals and organizations throughout the city. Mustafa Fletcher, Fletcher, correct?
Yes.
And also Kenny Green? Kenny? Go ahead, Mustafa.
Okay, my name is Mustafa. I'm the director of Unity 2 Gang Intervention. I would just like to begin about speaking on some of the understandings and treaties we accomplished over the last 3 years. One of the first major understandings that we had accomplished was the Swans in East Coast, which was a Bloods and Crip gang that have been warring for over the past 30 years, instrumental in some of the beginning of the Bloods and Crip wars. We got that to the table, and we've been having an understanding for the last 3 years with no Swans and East Coasters being killed between one another. The maintenance of the treaty is, maintaining, like, say, if somebody get into it with somebody, like Pete was saying, we on the phone calling, if we see some gang writing on the wall, we get it out, we get the gang writing off. So this is tools that enable us to maintain the understanding between the Swans and the East Coasters. Last year, we had one of our members from down in the 108 divisions. We have an understanding between the Anthem Parks Bloods and the 118th Street East Coasters, which was instrumental in stopping some of the killing between the Bloods and Crips down there. We recently, and I say recently, like in the last 2 weeks, we'll be meeting with Gannon on this. We met some players from F-13, former gang members from F-13. They got the license to operate in the Florence Firestone area. We know in the past that nobody has been able to really go into the Florence Firestone area and really deal with the F-13s. I brought 2 of them here in the audience, older brothers that they got the license to operate. And we already been making some changes in the Florence Firestone area in terms of the racial stuff that's been going on. We got the F-13s working with a black organization right now. We planning to do some stuff with the F-13s, but at this time right now, we want to keep everything low. We don't want it to get out of hand. We want to take it to Gannon, talk to Gannon about it and his people, and see how we can come up with a strategy to just get that whole area back down. So them was some of the work that we've been doing in that community.
Thank you, Mustafa. And also, I think your testimony reminds us that when you're an interventionist, there's real interventionists and there's people who just are not. Because some of the terminology you use right now, I understand what you mean by that, but I'd never use that terminology. And if I try to go out and pose as an interventionist, after about 2-3 sentences, I'm done. My credibility, not that I would have any walking in, but my credibility would be out the window, and I really shouldn't be there because I'm probably not going to do justice to the situation, and I'm probably going to end up having these guys figure out why I ended up in the state that I was later on. My point is intervention work is very particular work. It's very unique work, and it's something that we're doing now. And the one thing that I want to make sure that people understand, I personally am dedicated to make sure that we have intervention work rolling forward into the future to be much more, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, much more professional, better understood by everybody, because I think everybody needs to understand what intervention is and how the work needs to be done. And in addition to that, to make sure that we bear more resources so that we can reach as many communities as we can that need intervention work. I don't think we need an interventionist in Bel Air or certain neighborhoods in this city, thank God. But in certain communities, we do need interventionists. We do need intervention work. And unless we have it, we are not going to be able to be proud of the record that stands in this city when it comes to violence, when it comes to juvenile delinquency, when it comes to murders, when it comes to safety for the people of the city of Los Angeles, and that goes for everybody. So thank you for bringing forth those examples and this testimony. Yes.
My name's Kenny Green, and I'm with Toberman down in the Harbor area, part of the Unity Collab that is seated behind me. We've talked a lot about how intervention roll out to a scene and interact with PD on shootings and killings and deaths and all that. That's a big portion of our work, a very big portion. And some of the agencies that haven't learned how to work with PD, they're going to be falling behind the curve and ain't going to deal with the situation where it should be dealt with. But in saying that, a lot of our work is done with responding to the major crimes. Also, you know, putting peace truces together, which everybody behind me is a part of, is either doing it or maintaining one. That's another major part of our work where we have to have the approval where we can move around in certain communities, and LAPD allowing that to happen, which is a blessing by itself. There's a lot of other stuff that's under the radar that we do that means a lot to the quality of life in the community. That's responding to the graffiti, you know. We work together on that as far as, you know, if they see something that they want us to deal with because they don't have the resources to go deal with it themselves or they can't get to them, we deal with that stuff, you know, cutting down retaliation just on graffiti, the robberies, the burglaries, everything else that gang members engage in or gangs engage in. We work together to resolve those, and it's those kind of stuff that we kind of help the quality of life issues in our community that is not only helpful to the community, but there's a lot of people that don't even see that part of our interacting. You know, everybody just see the shootings and stuff like that. We roll out every day. We just had one in Wilmington Sunday. And, you know, while PD is dealing with the crime scene and everything else, we're running around, you know, doing the rumor control. We're running around, you know, making sure that other neighborhoods don't get, you know, involved. It was a mess because a guy that just got out was a heavy player that just got out of YA. And so just to make everybody stand down, you know, we're still working on that. And then on top of that, you know, Sunday we also had a little baby that got ran over, a 6-year-old baby that got ran over. And the father of that 6-year-old got killed 6 years ago by another one of the little homies in the neighborhood just, you know, speeding down the street. So we had one murder and one accidental death that we had to run around and do our stuff on. And LAPD is working on one section of both incidents, and we had to deal with the whole different, you know, aspect of that, maintaining all the truces and ceasefires that we had built in that community. But people that aren't aware of what's going on with PD and intervention, they would be very, very surprised in the interaction and accomplishment that both have done together. We've even been liaisons for each other in certain arenas that, you know, we couldn't go into ourselves. Matter of fact, like we had an event where some of your people came, and Billy Hayes is the captain of Harbor. And we're going to team up to get the 4 major high schools and the principals on a whole different safety thing, you know, whether it's racial, taggers, gangs, whatever. So the interaction and the collaboration that we've built, and this just didn't start last week. I mean, where we've had our history in the Harbor going back probably over 30 years, you know, dealing with PD. So we already know our role to play in this thing with community safety. So, you know, good marriage.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it. David Malik Spellman? I'm sorry, Spellman. And I don't know who this guy is. Anybody here, Bo Taylor? Bo Taylor in the house? Wear your shades, man.
Don't need them today.
Left the house without them. All right. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Malik Spellman. I'm an intervention prevention specialist. I work with Unity 2. And before I make my statement, I'd like to say thank you very much to you and your staff and to the fine officers here who take out the time to try to understand the fratricide that's in our community. So we thank you for that. My reason for being here is to state that I've been involved with the gang truce from the first handshake. And when you have
was that?
From the first handshake in
What, do you remember a year or something?
Yes, 1992.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And the reason that it's important to have a group of integrated parts causing the common purpose of performing these operations calls for is because Unity collaboratives are not just gang intervention prevention. We deal with social issues. We deal with families who may need mental health referrals. We deal with issues pertaining to children and lack of nutrition. We deal with issues, for example, at Unity 2, along with the blessings of the other Unity collab, we just gave away 350 pair of high-quality tennis shoes to the inner city on a $1 million bus, which we concept the idea of the sneaker bus. Some of the atrocities that take place in our community are beyond our control, but by us having individuals who have accepted the challenge to change, it allows them to be able to be that example to others in the community, because it's not our feelings that you hear here, it's the feelings of the community that we're here to express and to deliver. Pertaining to the police officers, I think it's very important that we have officers like this who can respect the work that we do and respect the fact that we are not law enforcement, that there is a thin line between law enforcement and gang intervention and prevention, and not having that type of pressure or disrespect for snitching, debriefing, or otherwise is highly accepted amongst our peers. It allows us the opportunity to be accepted socially as well as professionally in what we do. So thank you very much, and we thank the council, we thank the ad hoc, and we also thank the members of the LAPD that are involved in stopping the killing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Malik.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Councilman Cardenas, and my friends here from LAPD, Chief Beck and Commander Gannon. I just want to say that
Your name, sir?
my name is Bo Taylor. I'm the president of Unity 1. I want to say that we've had some phenomenal steps taken in the last year and a half in relationship building, and we've gone above and beyond the call of duty in a lot of instances, and I can see, just like the chief said earlier, it's not where it should be, but it's getting close. And it takes a lot of it takes a lot of effort and energy, but it also takes a lot of trust and heart to build the capacity where people can go in together into a situation. One in particular is over at we did a midnight basketball through Councilman Herb Weston's office. And we had 12 different teams, neighborhoods from all over the county came in, over the city rather, and we had a beautiful, beautiful celebration of peace. And it was a little rough in the beginning, but the efforts and the collaboration between law enforcement and the intervention community said that this is something that's real, it's here to stay, and it can be done if the right people step up and be committed and be consistent. And what we saw was the evolution of midnight basketball on the west side that hasn't taken place yet like it did. And for 2 months, people were so enthused about coming to this gym just to see basketball being played. They really got pumped up in the end when we had the All-Star game, and the LAPD had to play some of our finest. I don't want to say what the score was, but it was a beautiful...
Oxygen tanks in the room? Because
they got
play basketball.
No, they got some guys.
Basketball, I need an oxygen.
No, they got some guys, and it was a good game. It was a victory. We won by what, 3 points?
3 points.
Yeah, by 3 points. So it was good. But that was the work on behalf of law enforcement and the community that said that we wanted something different. And also want to say thank you to Councilman Herb Weston, because he really championed that cause. And I think if we look at that as a goal, as one of the things that can work, we can spread a lot of peace through these neighborhoods. Another thing that I wanted to add too is that people don't understand that as intervention workers, we only operate through a spirit. We don't have the guns, we don't have the badges like everybody said earlier, but that spirit, God has allowed us to be able to do this work. And over 16 years, people don't understand that we suffer from the same things that the community suffers from. We have relationships, issues with our families,
16 years. Here it is today, my first week at being a grandfather. My grandson, Andrew Jai Romero, was born last week, Thursday. So there's a lot of things that we go through just as people in law enforcement and other professionals in the city. But over a period of time, we have to have the time to develop our people in our organizations and agencies. That professionalism is where we're working towards, and building the relationships and the capacity to be able to be a better service to our community. And I think this relationship that we have now, I don't think it's going to diminish. I think it's getting stronger, and I think that people in the city of Los Angeles would definitely appreciate if they only knew what really goes on and how we're able to get to some of these results. So I thank you for chairing the ad hoc, and still, you guys have done a wonderful job in bringing the issues to light, and letting us be able to come in and address those issues, and I appreciate it, being a part of the process.
Okay. Thank you very much. I can't help but ask this question. Did Herb Wesson play basketball?
He threw the basketball up for the first time.
Because I just want to warn all of you, I think it was when he was speaker in the state legislature, or at least in the legislature, I witnessed him on stage. It wasn't him and I by ourselves, on stage with a dress. And
With a what? Oh, with the dress?
He was, they were performing what they called a year-end bash, and I think he was trying to be Tina Turner.
Oh.
And he actually was bragging about his legs. So I'm not gonna give an opinion about that, but I'm just saying, I'm warning you. I'm warning you. If he gets out there in some shorts or something like that, like you said, faith be with you, brother.
No, and too, Councilman, I want to say thank you to my colleagues who, all of the guys who do the work, Unity 2, Unity 3, Advance 2000, Homeless Unidos, Communities and Schools, Tobin House, and so many others. I think that if individuals can take a look at what we do and how we do it, I think a lot of other agencies around the country could learn. And we got some monumental steps that we're taking, and there's a lot of people that's going to take a look at what's being done in LA, and I appreciate the process, so thank you.
Thank you, and once again, I want to thank all of you, and I appreciate all of your dedication, because a lot of times people confine the term of public service to people who actually work for the government, such as police officers or elected officials or firefighters, et cetera. But I truly do believe that all of you who are interventionists are true public servants, because you are serving the public. And it's not appreciated enough. I don't think it's understood enough by enough people. You should be receiving thanks from many, many people who do not live in these neighborhoods, and people who are taxpayers, people who are citizens, people who live in Bel Air. They need to thank you as well. But I hope throughout this process we are successful in educating as many people as possible about the importance, the effectiveness, and the necessity to have interventionists and intervention programs throughout the city, and hopefully beyond the city as well.
Just to add the last thing, that in Watts was mentioned, we were able, because of a very humble business owner who understood the work that we did. He put up some money. We were able to hire over 30 intervention workers in the city of Los Angeles, and we hired eight people in Watts in the housing projects of Nickerson Gardens, Jordan Downs, and Imperial Courts. And that's part of the reason why, along with law enforcement, but those individuals who put their lives out there on the line every single day have done a hell of a job in Watts.
Understand this, Bo. I do appreciate an opportunity to recognize individuals. You just described someone that I think it would be a great opportunity for us to recognize his individual effort in supporting all the work that's going on when it comes to intervention. I'd be more than happy to honor him in front of council.
Oh, I'd love to do it. I'll give you.
It's up to you.
No, I want
to go ahead and educate me about who he is and why we should honor him. But it sounds, just on the surface, sounds like somebody who deserves to be honored and respected and appreciated.
I will. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen?
No, just thank you for your time.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you so much for your report. With that, we do not have any more public comment cards for item number 4. Is anybody else here for public comment on item number 4? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 4 is now closed. With that, we open up for public comment on items that are not on the agenda, issues that are not on the agenda. Seeing and hearing none, general public comment is now closed. With that, this committee is now adjourned.